Africa is one of the driest continents. It also has some of the world's most magnificent rivers: the Congo, the Nile, the Zambezi, the Grumeti. Like arteries carrying the lifeblood of the land, they follow their courses from the mountains to the seas. Perhaps the majestic Victoria Falls can be seen as one of the finest expressions of the power of a river. This is a landscape born of fire and water. Eons ago, vast tectonic forces uplifted the heartland of Africa in a fiery outburst of lava. And over the intervening ages, the relentless rivers have reshaped it. Right from the first moment when the primeval surface grew cool enough for rain to fall, water began carving its way through the strata. Today, it is still shaping those ancient rocks. Water also shapes the lives of those who live here. There can be no life without water, and from the very beginning, the rivers have attracted the countless creatures that are Africa's heritage. Rivers are often the focal point of the dramas that play themselves out every day in the wilderness. There are times when nature's ways seem harsh by human standards, for the same river that brings life-giving water also harbors death. There is one river in Africa, not the biggest, not the longest, but one that plays host to more life and death than any other. A river that epitomizes the wilderness that may soon be gone forever. It is Kenya's Mara River. The Mara is one of the many rivers that flow into Lake Victoria, the world's second largest natural lake. The headwaters of the Mara start with a series of springs in the Mau forest below the Sierra Escarpment. In the forest, the streams run cool and clear. From here it flows out onto the sun-drenched plains of one of the world's great game parks, the Masai Mara. To the many creatures that live out their lives along its banks, the river is everything. Large or small, predator or prey, it is a thread that binds them together. The common need to quench their thirst is an essential part of their lives. When the rains are good, the animals spread out, drinking at pools. But this is Africa, and dry always follows wet. As the temporary waterholes dry up, the animals must return to the river. The river itself is a dynamic, ever-changing system. It is constantly altering its shape as sandbanks deflect its course or the annual floods undermine its verges, collapsing trees and leaving behind steep, almost unclimbable banks. At the same time, those banks are being modified by the actions of the animals. Pounded by millions of hooves and feet, the approaches are constantly reshaped. The hippos play an important part in this process. They are large, and the paths they tread in their daily journeys give access to other animals and, at the same time, provide channels for rainwater to flow into the river. The area between the water and the bank is a rich feeding ground called the margin. Here the foliage is lush and green, even when the rest of the Mara is parched. For the elephants, the river is a place of passing, to feed and find water and then move on, for they have few enemies other than man. But for the rest, the river is a hazardous barrier, where death comes in many guises. Very few wild animals die of natural causes. For most of them, life is one long struggle to postpone the inevitable, violent end. The success or failure of any species depends on its ability to evolve techniques to survive. The crocodiles might wait in ambush, but the zebras are strong and fast. And where the prey goes, the big cats must follow. But even a lioness keeps a wary eye on the basking crocodiles. Baboons use intelligence and agility to get them across in style. John Varty, wildlife photographer.
The following scene is one of the most extraordinary sequences ever filmed of crocodile predation. The Mara River is the lowest it has been for many years. The gazelles, unlike the wildebeest and zebra, do not often cross the river, and consequently their knowledge of crocodiles is limited. Although she can clearly see the 15 large crocodiles lying in wait, apparently the lead female does not associate them with danger. Perhaps it is their low profile which does not alert her. Once she enters the river, the herd instinct is so strong that the others follow her suicidally to almost certain death. From this herd of 22, over half are killed by the crocs. Just watch the incredible speed, strength, and efficiency.
Crocodiles have strong conical and cylindro-conical teeth. The enlarged canines are sharp with razor-like cutting edges. They are best suited to gripping and puncturing. The teeth also interlock, so there is no sideways cutting action. The teeth are not deeply rooted. Instead, they fit into sockets in the jawbone and can be dislodged by a sideways pull. To counter this, 2 or more crocodiles anchor the kill, while another rotates its body, tearing off portions. But in spite of this, crocodiles are obliged to swallow much of their food whole. This is achieved by raising their heads high with a gulping motion to allow chunks to slide down the gullet. Powerful digestive juices then deal with bone, horns, hair, and sinews. Crocodiles are ectotherms, which means they have only limited ability to control their body temperature. So the crocodiles spend much of their time sunbathing. Once their bodies warm up, they open their mouths in a gape to dissipate excess heat from the tongue. At the same time, by raising their head, they shield the brain from overheating by angling it to the sun's position. Crocodiles are also capable of absorbing energy in the form of solar heat through the tongue's surface. If it becomes too hot, they move into the shade or return to the water. The crocodile is perfectly adapted to its aquatic environment. Its limbs can be flattened against its armor-plated body to give it a streamlined shape. Powerful sideways sculling movements of the tail can propel it through the water at considerable speed when necessary. The 4-toed webbed hind feet have stout claws that are used to grip prey, as well as acting as stabilizers. An adult is capable of remaining underwater for 3 hours and more. It does so by slowing its heart to 4 beats a minute, and so reducing its oxygen needs. A special set of muscles can move the liver and stomach back to allow the lungs to expand more. Underwater, a transparent nictitating membrane, lubricated by special glands, protects the eye. The crocodile can also partially retract its eyes to protect them from damage. Crocodiles share their underwater world with one of their primary food sources, the barbel, or catfish. Barbel are well suited to Africa's rivers. Sensitive feelers guide them when the water is muddy. Bony barbs as elementary limbs, they can even escape from dried up pools to search for water in times of drought. Barbel are voracious predators and scavengers, and without the crocodile, they would soon grow too large for other predators to handle. As so often happens, the relationship works both ways. The barbel frequently steals scraps from feeding crocodiles. Crocodiles court and mate in the water. They indulge in snout rubbing, and the male with large glands under the lower mandible repeatedly rubs his head over the scaly head and back of the female, exuding a musk-like scent from the pressure of this action, an olfactory stimulus that excites her. The female signals her acceptance of the male by raising her head up high and baring her throat. This behavior precedes mating. The clutch of eggs that results varies from 18 to over 80. They are laid in a cavity excavated by the female. She remains nearby, but sooner or later she must return to the river to drink. Then the water mongoose, honey badger, bush pig, baboons, and hyenas can dig up the eggs. The Nile monitor is a most efficient predator, and in parts of Africa they destroy 50% or more of the eggs laid in a season. They appear to find the exact location of the eggs by detecting scent that the female crocodile uses to indicate to other females the position of her nest. After 80 to 90 days, the eggs hatch. They usually utter yelping or croaking sounds to signal to the mother to open the nest and release them. But in soft river sand, they can emerge unaided and cover a short distance to water on their own. Even the hatchlings are opportunistic, feeding on aquatic and shoreline insects, crabs, snails, tadpoles, frogs, and several species of fish fry. Although crocodiles are thought to live up to 100 years, the first year is the most critical. The hatchlings have to quickly learn to hide from the many hunting birds. Even a fish eagle will depart from its fish diet if it can catch a baby crocodile.
These slow-motion studies show that long ago nature evolved the flying skills that man had to develop when he too took to the air. As the bird leaves its perch, it dives to gain flying speed. The legs are tucked in to streamline its shape. As it approaches the target, the primary feathers of the wings and tail are spread to slow it down, and at the same time to act as flaps to prevent a stall. Powerful wing beats enable it to climb with the added load. The fish eagle's talons are barbed to give it a better grip on the fish. The actual pickup is an amazing feat of flying, when you consider that the fish must be accelerated from 0 to a flying speed of about 25 kilometers an hour in a fraction of a second. The bird's weight is suddenly almost doubled, and the center of gravity is changed violently. It is an achievement that few aircraft could perform. Aerial skill of another kind is shown by the pied kingfisher's hovering helicopter-like flight. In spite of the vigorous movement, the kingfisher keeps its head perfectly still, so that it can take accurate aim at its prey. At the same time, the bird must adjust its aim to allow for the refraction of the water. Because of the energy expended by the kingfisher, it must catch a considerable mass of fish each day. In nature, competition ensures that all resources are used to the full. Many birds live on or near the river. Each has developed its own style of feeding, and in this way, every ecological niche is filled. The hippopotamus spends most of its life in the river. They are large animals. A big bull can weigh over 2 tons. Yet they have a sensitive skin that can tolerate only a limited exposure to the sun before they must return to the water. This is probably the only animal on Earth that produces what is called blood sweat. The hippo is well adapted to life in the river. Its eyes protrude above the water, and the nostrils are sealed by muscular valves when they submerge. Underwater, the ears are folded into recesses for protection. Hippos can remain under for up to 5 minutes. Their feet are not webbed, so instead of swimming, they walk or run along the bottom. This is a benefit to the river, in that sediment is stirred up so that the current can carry it away. In this way, the hippos help to keep the river clean. The cows give birth to a single offspring of about 50 kilograms, usually in shallow water. The gestation of 8 months is surprisingly short, just half that of the rhino. Like their parents, baby hippos do not float, so in deep water, they ride on their mother's back. Hippos feed largely at night to avoid the sun and reduce competition from other herbivores. Cows with calves are savagely protective. It is believed that hippos cause more deaths than any other large animal in Africa. This is not a yawn. It is a formidable display of armament. The long, razor-sharp canines are not used in feeding. They are purely weapons. The spraying of dung indicates that the resident bull claims this area and that he is prepared to defend it.
A hippo bull is one of the few herbivores that will kill its rival in a territorial fight. An adult hippo is more than a match for most crocodiles. A large bull has been known to bite a 3-meter crocodile in two. This hippo died after a fight, and its mate defended its body for several days. But a creature like the crocodile that lives for over 100 years can afford to be patient. Sooner or later, the cow must leave the river to feed. Now the crocodiles show their scavenging role in the river's ecology. The tough, thick hide obliges them to go for the softer parts of the body. In a case such as this, the feeding is orderly, with each crocodile waiting its turn. The river's influence extends beyond its banks. Once, much of this area was covered by equatorial forest, but now only a few remnants survive along the river. The forest has its specific set of animals suited to its special conditions. The leopard is the principal predator. It prefers a habitat where there are big trees to give it and its prey protection. Lions are mainly creatures of the open plains, but sometimes a lioness will use the thick foliage as a shelter where she can suckle her cubs. Baboons are the most widespread of the African primates, other than man. They can be found almost anywhere where there are tall trees or cliffs to shelter them at night. During the day, they forage, mainly on the ground, for a wide variety of food. Here they are eating wood termites. They are intelligent, and the young soon learn by example from their parents. The martial eagle hunts in the forest margins. It can weigh over 6 kilograms and is quite capable of killing a young impala. These powerful birds have been known to subdue animals as large as 20 kilograms. A baboon scavenges the remains of the eagle's meal. This is a reminder that millions of years ago, not far from here, our ancestors came down from the trees to steal from fellow predators. Elsewhere in the forest, a brown snake eagle confronts a forest cobra. It is a contest between the cobra's lethal fangs and the eagle's talons. The snake eagles have special adaptations. They can hover as they search for prey, and unlike most eagles, their legs are not feathered. Instead, they are protected from bites by thick scales. In nature, nothing is static. Each organism goes through a cycle of life and death that is part of the survival of the species. Even the trees of the forest are subject to nature's laws. The river is the core of a greater ecosystem. It is surrounded by forest and grassland. The balance between the two is constantly changing, and the agents for that change are fire and elephants. Although elephant populations in Africa have fallen drastically, here on the Mara, their numbers have risen since 1984. This is because they were once free to migrate to forest areas outside the reserve, but today they are confined by heavy poaching. and every year the pressure on the forest increases. By breaking down trees, they can open the forest to grass, and once the grass is established, fire can penetrate. By its very nature, grass can withstand fire better than bushes or young trees, and today grassland dominates the Maasai Mara. Some animals browse the acacia thickets on the fringe of the forest. Once, the Mara supported a large number of black rhinos. Today, poaching has reduced their number to 30. Long legs raise the Kori bustard above the grass so that it can see its enemies. The marsh harrier patrols the grassland, and instinctively the mother flattens her tail to hide the chick. This 25,000 square kilometer sea of grass supports an estimated 2.5 million animals, of which 1.5 million are wildebeest. Each species has developed its own feeding strategy. Not only does this reduce competition, but it also uses the resource to the full. For instance, the zebra graze the longer, more fibrous grass, and in the process they expose the green protein-rich leaves that the wildebeest prefer. The grass has also made its adaptation. It actually thrives on a short period of intense grazing. So, in a symbiotic relationship, the animals benefit from the grass, and the grass benefits from the grazing. The result is one of the most productive systems the world has known. During the dry season, the males fight for the right to sire the next generation. The cycle of their lives is governed by the rains, and their rutting is timed so that the birth of their young coincides with the arrival of the lush grass of the next rainy season. An annual pattern of animal movement was once common. Now, thanks to man's agriculture and his fences, this is one of the few places where the spectacle of a mass migration can be seen. As the amount of longer grass diminishes, the zebra are the first to move. And following the herds are the lions. Once they were the spotted cats of the forest, but now they too are color coordinated to merge with the grass. The river is a barrier stretched across the migration route. There is no way around it, and the predators know that their best chance of making a kill is here, at the crossing point. At 320 kilograms, a zebra is a difficult animal for a crocodile to tackle, particularly if the herd keeps together in the shallow water. Zebra approach the other bank. The dominant lioness watches. She is the hunter of the pride, and she's waiting for the moment to launch her attack. Apart from the predators, the zebra must also face the danger of slippery rocks. An injured animal is a certain victim.
This shot clearly illustrates how a large predator risks death during a hunt. The lioness was very lucky to escape serious injury, but she was clearly shaken by the incident. We followed this pride for another 21 days, and although they made many attacks on the migrating zebra, the lead female seemed to have lost her confidence. Fear of the flying hooves made her hesitate at the last moment in each attempt. The zebras showed clearly how effective their hooves are as weapons. It might have been coincidence, but 2 days later, we came across a dead crocodile not far down the river. By this time, the lions were getting desperate. Eventually, the hungry sub-adults also joined in the chase, but they lacked the experience.
So far, the zebra's technique of keeping together in the shallow water has been successful. But there is always one animal who breaks the rules. A lone zebra enters deep water. Now the advantage is with the crocodiles. The crocodile's success splits the herd. Panic drives this one into deeper water where it can be attacked from below. The lioness sees her chance, but she falters. She is experienced and wary of getting too close to the crocodiles. But the drama is not over. Further downstream, a zebra foal has collapsed. One of the sub-adults sees an opportunity. The risk is great, but the reward for the desperately hungry lion is greater. Upstream, a feeding frenzy is developing among the crocodiles. Crocodiles are sometimes injured during these feeding frenzies. This one had its throat torn out in the melee. One zebra foal does not go far in a pride of hungry lions. But there will soon be other opportunities. The wildebeest migration is about to begin. The first wildebeest arrive at the river a few weeks after the zebra. The water is low and the current sluggish. However, Africa is ever changing. The river today is not the same as the river tomorrow. A tropical thunderstorm in the catchment area pours millions of liters of water into the river. At first, this makes little difference, but overnight, the river starts to rise. Now the latecomers have further and further to swim. The force of the water sweeps them beyond the normal landing places. Weakened by their struggles, many drown. The crocodiles no longer need to hunt. They and the vultures gorge themselves on the carcasses. To us, this might seem a cruel and wasteful process, but adversity is nature's way of eliminating the weak, and in the light of the 1.5 million animals that make the migration each year, it is as nothing. Now there are thousands of wildebeest grazing near the river. The terrible memory of her brush with death fades as the lioness regains her confidence. Even her successful attacks, an acceptance of death seems to be part of the makeup of the prey. Most of the wildebeest have arrived, and here they will stay until it is time to head south again. The cycle of life is complete. Many have been lost along the way, but as the rains turn the grass green, nature moves to make up the numbers. This is the way it has always been, and this is the way it will be in the future. Or will it? There is another creature who lives here. For hundreds of years, the Maasai have grazed their cattle here beside the Mara. They share the grass and water with the migrating herds. They are cattlemen and warriors, with little appetite for cultivation. They live in harmony with nature. The Mara River is held in reverence as a source of life to the Maasai and their cattle. But elsewhere, man's ever-increasing populations are putting Africa's rivers under pressure. Our ignorance of the workings of the complex river systems is appalling. 80% of the power of a river is generated in the first 10% of its length. Yet we destroy the indigenous natural vegetation that protects the source and replace it with an alien commercial forest. And in our greed, we plant right up to the river's edge. In 1930, the Ramadipa River in South Africa ran so strong and clear that people fought a court case over its water. Then, in the 50s, eucalyptus forest was planted right up to the river bank. This is what it looked like then. This is what it looks like today. Research has shown that each eucalyptus tree absorbs 300 liters of underground water a day. It takes just 11 years for the forest to suck a medium-sized river dry. Then, to compound the problem, our method of forestry means that large areas are clear-felled. This leaves steep hillsides unprotected, areas that with the first rain will collapse into the river, flooding it with silt. Monoculture forests are also more vulnerable to fire with the same effect. It is ironic that the state forests should use the image of a tearful antelope in an appeal to prevent forest fires, when their green deserts have long ago driven off or killed the original animals, birds and insects. Then, in the mistaken belief that the catchment areas are less important and productive, bureaucracy has crowded hundreds of thousands of marginal, impoverished people into areas that cannot possibly support them. With nothing but wood as their energy source, we leave them little choice but to deforest the land. The sheer numbers of their livestock destroys the grass cover, leaving nothing to cushion and protect the earth underneath. When the rain falls, productive soil that took 10,000 years to create is washed away in a single flood. Silt smothers aquatic life, destroying the rich diversity of the river. And when the floodwaters recede, they leave behind a system clogged with silt. This was once the Great Limpopo River. The deep pools, home of the crocodile and hippopotamus, disappear. This hippo, trapped in a shallow pool, is splashing water with its tail in a desperate attempt to protect its sensitive skin from the sun. Now, without vegetation to act as a sponge, the rivers that previously flowed permanently are either in flood or dry. What was a clean-flowing river becomes a series of stagnant pools. Dysentery and cholera break out in the unhygienic conditions. Typically, we use technology to treat the symptoms and not the causes. Environmentally ignorant banking institutions grant loans for large dams. Above the wall, water; below, nothing. We forget that the same amount of money could have repaired the environmental damage that caused the problem in the first place. Some of the greatest environmental and financial disasters worldwide have come from misguided dams. In northern Kenya, the Turkwal Gorge Dam project cost almost $300 million. Its frozen fish plant has never produced any marketable product, and the dam itself has destroyed the livelihood of the local people. In South Africa, the Suknoch Dam, built at a cost of $12 million, burst as it was filling for the first time. It deposited 1,800 parts per million of silt in the river below, sufficient to kill all aquatic life downstream. Once we have trapped the water in a dam, the potential for irrigation is obvious. The land is cleared for destructive monoculture schemes, timber, sugar, citrus, coffee. And to sustain them, we must wage a war against nature, spraying millions of liters of pesticides to pollute what is left of the rivers. Today, 4/5 of all water goes to agriculture. Yet wasteful methods mean that only 1/3 of that water will be used by the plants themselves. Meanwhile, the local communities are left with a devastated river and no fresh, clean water to drink. Because the rivers are given freely, we desecrate them. They have become a convenient dumping ground for our litter and our waste. Factories pour their effluent into the water. One South African factory, earning millions, was fined a few $1,000s for paralyzing the fish in the river on which it was sited. Less than 2% of the world's water is drinkable. It is certain that as more and more of the world's life support systems begin to fail, the shortage of water where all life began will become the most critical. If we are to avoid our own extinction, we must within the next generation come up with a new conservation ethic. A balance sheet must be drawn, which records air, soil, and water as our most precious assets, because these are the very basis of life itself. If we fail, we will get no second chance. Some of nature's most exquisite beauty comes from water, and it is said that a river moves like life itself.
Thank you.